Go ahead and get started. We got a couple members that text me and are running about 5 minutes late, but I want to go ahead and get started in the interest of time. I know that the Public Service Commission, I think y'all have a meeting you've got to get to, so I'm going to let you guys go first. Reese McAllister, if you would come up. And when you come up, if you would, tell us what line you're on so we can know where we're at on the sheet, please.
Thank you, Chairman. You can go ahead and turn to line 275.1 is where we'll be in our briefing. But before I get started, I want to express regrets on behalf of our chairman. He had a prior engagement this morning, and he had arranged for Commissioner Fitzjohnson to be here, and he had a medical emergency in his family. So our other three commissioners are traveling, so they were unavailable. So they sent me instead.
Okay.
So.
Well, we're glad to have you.
So it's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the commission. I have with me today Tom Bond, who's our director of our utility unit.
Okay.
And I also have Jane Stroeva, who's our chief financial officer, and Tom Kraus, who's our legislative liaison, who you all know already. So,
All right.
like I said, thank you for allowing us to be here, Chairman Beach, committee members, and staff, and thank you for allowing us input into the budget process. First, on behalf of the Public Service Commission and our entire staff, we'd like to thank the governor and you for the cost of living increases over the past several years. These cost of living increases have helped us retain an experienced and technically competent staff. Many of the issues that we regulate, from enforcing the Call Before You Dig program, rate cases, integrated resource plans to rate recovery proceedings regarding Vogel construction project, require specialized technical staff. And these COLA increases have benefited the ratepayers of Georgia tremendously by allowing us to recruit and maintain a very technical, competent staff. So thank you for that. During last year's committee meeting, we were pleased to report that Vogel Unit 3 had entered commercial operation, and we were looking forward to Unit 4 coming online. And on April 29, 2024, Vogel Unit 4 opened commercial operation. Both units are splitting atoms and creating energy for Georgians. And the completion of the Vogel nuclear expansion project is a crowning achievement not only for Georgia Power Company, but also for the entire state of Georgia. Vogel Units 3 and 4 will produce carbon-free energy day and night for the next 60 to 80 years. And these units produce enough energy to power 1 million homes and businesses. So as exciting as that news is, and it is exciting, I'm sure you're personally aware and have seen in the media, power bills have risen over the past several years. Due to national inflationary factors, costs for goods and services have risen, and unfortunately energy costs have not been immune. Fuel costs specifically have been affected by the past several years of inflation. Chairman Shaw was at a committee meeting last week before the House Special Committee on Resource Management. He shared some statistics from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics that from January 20th of 2020 to January of 2024, groceries are up 24.7%, which we all are aware. Gasoline up 27.4%, but electricity is up 29.1% nationwide. And natural gas, which many of our plants that produce electricity use as fuel, is up 35.5%. So as you can see, electricity and natural gas is higher even than groceries and gas as far as the effects of inflation on these costs. What is not reported is how hard the PSC works to mitigate increases and to protect Georgia ratepayers. In Georgia Power's most recent rate case, the utility requested an increase of $2.9 billion. After a full audit and analysis and after many public hearings, the PSC approved an increase 40% lower than what Georgia Power requested. The PSC also spread out the price increase over 3 years to minimize the rate impact on ratepayers. With the completion of the Vogel nuclear project, the PSC leveraged the many construction delays to negotiate an agreement with Georgia Power. Work by PSC commissioners and staff saved ratepayers more than $3 billion in capital cost. That amounts to ratepayers saving nearly 30% off Vogel's construction cost. As far as our request, cost of living adjustment shortfall for fiscal year 2025 of $24,108. This is a one-time cost located at line 275.1 on page 18 of your sheet. The governor's proposed budget added and the House retained a $24,108 appropriation in the amended FY 2025 budget to cover a COLA shortfall. We asked this subcommittee to uphold this addition. Over the past several years, the PSC has requested that the state COLA funds include pipeline safety employees. Although these are full-time state employees, the state receives a partial reimbursement for their salaries from the U.S. Department of Transportation grant. Unfortunately, those grant funds are not fully realized until after the state's fiscal year has concluded. This delay leads to a shortfall during the initial fiscal year in which a COLA is granted. After last year's COLA increases, the one-time true-up came to the $24,108 figure. This will cover the cost the PSC paid to these employees between the time they receive the COLA and when the federal government begins its partial reimbursement for those funds. We will only ask for this gap funding in years where there is a COLA. Pipeline safety inspector equipment, $42,142, which is at line 275.2 on page 18. This is a one-time cost. The PSC will be requesting funding in the FY 2026 budget for the state share of a new pipeline safety inspector. In the amended FY 2025 budget, the House added an appropriation to provide equipment, including the state share of a vehicle and a computer for that new inspector. We asked the Senate to retain this addition. The PSC employs several pipeline safety inspectors who, under a grant from the federal government, ensure natural gas pipelines are safe. This year, during our federal audit, points were docked because Georgia did not make as many inspections as the federal guidelines require. Anytime we cannot perform the federal expectations and our audit points are reduced, the state loses out on federal reimbursement money. We're trying to rectify that, but a smaller staff makes this much more inspections difficult. Last year, the PSC asked for 2 new pipeline safety inspectors. We received funding for 1, for which we're very grateful. This year, we are again asking for that second pipeline safety inspector. Without additional staff needed to complete the required inspections, we run the risk of losing federal reimbursements in the future. This is an ongoing challenge. Currently, we have several pipeline safety inspectors who are at retirement age or nearing retirement age. It takes significant time to seek out, interview, and hire potential employees with the needed expert experience in this area. After they are hired, it takes approximately 3 to 5 years to fully train them to get them up to speed to do all the inspections that are required by the federal.
Well, I remember last year, we kind of had a fight over that one extra inspector.
Yes, sir.
What makes you think we're going to get one in the budget, the next budget?
Well, all we can do is ask.
Okay, so why should we, I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yes.
Why should we buy the equipment and the car and the vehicle and so on if we're not sure we're going to get the inspector? Because I know the House was pretty adamant last year about not giving that extra. I actually went to bat for you for the
Yes,
extra
sir.
inspector, and I think the House took it back out,
Well,
if I remember correctly,
Yes.
I think.
And yes, sir, and we're very optimistic because the House has put the money in for the actual equipment. So if they're the ones who pulled it out last year, we feel confident that they're open to adding that inspector this year since they put the equipment cost into the recommendation.
Okay. You have any questions?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, what mic is that?
Right here.
Okay.
I think we're here more for the budget than for utility costs. I know you talked about that,
Yes.
but I will add that Forbes last year listed Georgia in the top 5 utility costs in the country, and we drilled down, it wasn't the water. That was the reason we were in the top 5. But my question is about there's funding you guys get from the utility company that reimburse expenses for consultants, that kind of stuff. Under that, I looked it up, it was OCGA 46-2-33.
Yes, sir.
It looks like the funding is being paid directly from the utility to the consultant. And so my question is, and it also looked like some of that stuff might have even been like staff travel and something. Is that on your books? I couldn't find it in the budget, or is this off the books?
It goes directly to the consultants, the contract, and Tom.
Yeah,
So it's not in your budget. It's sort of an off the book accounting.
It's go ahead, I'll let you.
It's not in the state budget. I mean, obviously, we have records of all the every consultant contract goes on an agenda for approval. Every order requiring Georgia Power to pay the consultant goes on an agenda for approval. So, I mean, it's all done in public meetings. I mean, it's not off the book in the sense that it's not done publicly, but it's not part of the state appropriated budget. This was done back in, I think, 2010.
I think you're right.
And what happens is we don't have huge rate cases every year. So like this year, we've got the IRP and the Georgia Power rate case. and we won't have another one probably for another 3 years. And so what used to happen is we would have this massive increase in the need for state appropriated funds every couple years. And in 2010, the legislature decided that it would work better just to have Georgia Power have to pay for those consultants. And that way, it's Georgia Power ratepayers that are paying the funding as opposed to taxpayer generally, because, not all Georgians use Georgia Power. You've got a lot on EMCs, a lot on electric municipalities. So that, I think, was the thought process behind that.
Yeah, I know at one time it was 600,000. I think it's got a CPI. I don't know what the number's up to now.
It's around 800,000. And so like the current integrated resource plan, we're right at that 800,000.
So do you have could you get us that information of where all that money has gone to?
Yes, I can get you
I think it'd be great to have, because it's, and there's a bill in the House that says everything has to show up in the state budget. I don't know if that'll pass through or not. It didn't make it last year, but this isn't really in the budget, and it's money that's being spent at the direction of the PSC, and nobody really knows what it is, I guess. I guess we could go back through some hearings and try to dig and find it out. I'm not saying there's anything sinister there. I'm just saying it just seems like it ought to be in there. So if we could get that information, I would appreciate it if you could.
Yeah, we can get that.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments? Well, thank you for coming.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate it. Tell the commissioners we said hello.
All right.
I
Yes,
hope
sir.
everything goes good for his wife today.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, next we'll go with Commissioner Nunn from Department of Community Affairs. If you'd come on up and your team, and you again tell us what line you're on.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Great to be here today. On behalf of the Department of Community Affairs, our entire team, I want to thank you for your support, and happy to quickly touch on a couple of items in the governor's budget recommendations. And I'll just, unless there are questions elsewhere in our budget, I'm going to jump all the way to page 11 briefly. I believe Executive Director Hunter Hill will be here to speak to the items in the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority budget. Actually, I think I may be on, sorry, I'm working off my phone. Yeah, page 11. I believe Hunter will be here to speak to the GFA ads. There are 3 that were included in the governor's budget. That's an attached agency to us, and certainly supportive of the governor's ads here. As we deal with communities all across the state, I will tell you that infrastructure is, including housing, are their absolute top needs at the moment. And so I'll leave those questions to Hunter. But if you move on to the second page, there are 3 items in our budget on page 12 under One Georgia Authority, and that is at lines starting 86.1, 86.2, and 86.3. At 86.1, the governor has recommended a $28 million amended ad for the Rural Workforce Housing Initiative. This is a One Georgia initiative. So One Georgia is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. Significant impact all across the state, and in terms of infrastructure investment, economic development investment. I think it's of no surprise to many in the State House that housing is a real critical challenge from a workforce development standpoint across the state. 2 years ago, you supported a new rural workforce housing initiative within One Georgia. Over the last 18 months, we have made 22 awards to communities across the state who have partnered with developers to develop entry-level housing stock, for-sale housing stock to support workforce in
So
every
what is
corner of the state.
entry level? Is there a price tag on
Yeah,
that?
it's a price point. It's any housing less than $290,000 as a sale point, and we actually have to look at the local housing demographic in
Right.
each community.
No, it's different in Alpharetta than it is Ocilla. I get that.
Exactly, but a maximum of 290,000 price point. So of
And
those, go
and
ahead.
do we track these developments and make sure they're doing what they say they're doing and
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
building the product you want for the community?
That's exactly right. So, and I was going to mention of the 22, one has actually completed. So we're still inside of a 24-month window. One is actually completed. That's in Columbus. It brought initially, I believe it was 31 new homes online. All of them have been sold, and it's exactly the model that we were looking for. It's folks who work at Fort Moore. It's folks who work in the school system. It's folks who work in the call centers at Synovus and Aflac. It is folks who work at Walmart. 17 of the 22 projects are on par with our expectations and are moving along. One is actually, technical term, de-obligated that grant. The developer and the community actually ran into some issues. And so the community came to us and said, we're not going to move forward. We would like to come back with a new application, new scope, new developer. So we took those funds back, and they are reapplying for funds. And then there are 3 that we are kind of navigating through some more difficult hurdles. But
So
yes, there's a lot of
you work
compliance
with
to
Commissioner
track.
Wilson and talk about if he's got a big, like the Hyundai plant in Savannah and they need housing. Do you work with him and go to
Absolutely.
communities around that area to help?
Absolutely. So we are very close and attached at the hip, and both serve, in addition to being on the One Georgia Authority, our teams work very closely in evaluating these. Each of these housing investments, we are looking at what is the economic development activity in the region. And as you know, all across the state, we experience needs from Southwest Georgia to, as you mentioned, the 4-county area and beyond around the Hyundai plant.
Okay. All right.
The second line item there, pull that up, I believe it's 86.2.
Yeah, the rural, 20 million for
That's
rural.
right. 20 million for the Rural Site Development Initiative. This was an ad last year in the budget. And I will tell you, over the 25-year history of One Georgia, we have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in 140 counties all across the state. We have invested in economic development capacity, rural sites really all across the state, many of which have paid extraordinary dividends for the state. A number of those are grad-certified sites. Again, this talks to the partnership between One Georgia, DCA, and the Department of Economic Development. Of those grad sites, that's Georgia Ready for Accelerated Development, Georgia Ready for Accelerated Development. Many of those, over the last 5 years in our unprecedented economic development success, have been deployed, have been used, have been put to use. And recognizing the need for more grad-ready sites across the state, this is a very intentional investment in communities all across the state. Again, this was included in last year's budget, amended budget. We launched the program in the first quarter of the fiscal year, so third quarter of the calendar year. In December, we made our first 6 awards to communities all across the state. I believe Glenn County, Liberty County, Screven County, Dade County, and Northwest Georgia, Peach, Houston County. You're testing my memory. I should have written that down. And Dodge County were the 6.
Well, good. Okay.
Moving forward
Got it.
there. And then the last item, the next item there, what was it,
86.3.
86.3 was a house ad of $10 million for disaster relief.
There didn't seem to be any detail on this 10 million when I read through it, and I kind of want to know what's the plan to appropriate the money, how's it going to work?
Yeah.
I want to help those folks.
Absolutely.
And I also wonder is this 10 million, are we able to apply and get reimbursed from FEMA or anything, or is this just we're going to take a $10 million hit and help?
So great question. And while I've not had deep discussions with the House, I do know that this is very much patterned after our response to Hurricane Michael. And so I can give you a little bit of example there. Certainly there are, we are looking at federal funds for disaster relief in many areas. Ag, I know you'll hear from Tyler Harper. We will work with HUD on their CDBG disaster recovery program. In Hurricane Michael, there was a similar amount of money that was included in the budget. And we found that there were communities all across southwest Georgia at the time. And by the way, I think there were 20 counties that were impacted by Hurricane Michael as major declared disaster areas.
Okay.
I believe it was 63 that were included in Helene. I may be wrong on the number, but I'm close. We funded some local water and sewer projects that didn't fit in the specific guidelines. We funded several economic development projects. There were some development authority properties that were and infrastructure that were issued. So it really addressed a variety of needs that did not get served or funded by federal dollars.
Well, let me just say this. I'm not against the 10 million for them because those people are hurting. And we had a transportation meeting yesterday, and Commissioner McMurray showed us a video of the damage down there, and the people got devastated down there, and I get that.
Right.
But when you're talking about $10 million, I would like to have kind of a game plan of how we're going to execute the
Absolutely.
the money and how it's going to be spent. So okay.
Absolutely. We'll work on that for you.
All right. Any questions,
I don't
Mr. Chairman?
have- No.
Any questions, Senator? You just came in, Senator. Okay. Well, thank you very much, and appreciate all you do for us.
Thanks,
All
sir.
right, next
Appreciate you.
we're going to go to the World Congress Center. Is the if the CEO of the World Congress Center would come on up, your team, and Mr. Duval, and then I'll also tell us kind of where we're at on what line items.
You bet. Thank you. Mr. Chair, thank you, members of the committee. Thank you very much. Introduce my colleagues here, Lindsay Strickland, our Vice President of Government Affairs, and Janet Finlinson, our Chief Financial Officer, here today
Good to
with
see
you. And
you.
also Kelvin Moore, who helps manage and will be up before you after this as our General Manager of Savannah. So thank you for your time today. We're proud to be here. I have replaced Frank Poe, but I've been working with the World Congress Center here for 23 years. So
Well,
I'm excited.
congratulations on your
Thank you. Thank you very much.
promotion.
Yes, sir.
We're glad to have you
Thank you.
in that role. We've got a lot of exciting things happening. I serve on your oversight committee, and when I go to those meetings, it's all just good news, whether it's World Cup or just recently the college football championship and Super Bowl coming and Final Four, finally getting the Final Four after COVID.
We're excited.
And we got a lot going on.
We do,
And,
definitely.
you know, I tell people all the time, this World Congress Center is an economic engine for our state. And so we appreciate what you do.
Absolutely. We appreciate it. And I think we have some material we put before you, but I will definitely stick to the tracking sheet. Obviously, we are here to generate economic impact. And so as part of our presentation we prepared for you on page 3, it shows our impact. We're certainly thankful for all the funds that you provide through us to help improve the facilities. Currently, we have 2 active capital projects at the World Congress Center. We're replacing 48 acres of roofing and also some aging escalators infrastructure. So we're in the midst of that right now, and those projects are going well. On page 8 of our information we passed out, we always want to make sure that we tell you that we like to reinvest in ourselves. And so over the since 2002 through 2024, we've reinvested about $170 million in the Congress Center of our own funds that we've done. But today I'm with you just to talk about the capital projects and funds sheet, page 2 of 5, specifically tracking numbers 371.26, .27, and .28. Those are in the governor's recommended budget, and the House did approve these, but wanted to go over these with you real quickly and make sure that I could answer any questions you might have today. First one really is 27, is replacement of HVAC equipment. As noted in our presentation on page 10, we continue to go through aging and classifying what we need to replace, and right now we're working on mechanical and HVAC for the facilities. This one-time funding will help us replace approximately 10 rooftop units at the World Congress Center and help us with some master design services so we can continue to replace our aging infrastructure. The next one, 371.28, is really about planning and engineering development for an expansion of the World Congress Center on the International Plaza.
Yeah, that's 371.27, isn't it? Or,
Oh,
or is it, no, it's 2.8. Yeah, you're
2.8,
right,
I'm sorry,
2.8. Okay.
371.28.
All right.
Just seeking one-time funding to help us plan for engineering and development of the International Plaza. I think on page 12 of our presentation, you can see what we're planning, or just some initial look at it. We have about 100,000 square feet of International Plaza that sits between the World Congress Center, the new Signia Hotel that we built, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and State Farm Arena, and we're looking to see what we can develop on that plaza and potentially expand that plaza toward the Home Depot backyard, inclusive of revenue generation through building another parking garage there. So we're seeking those one-time funding to help us begin that planning. We've already put $1 million in to begin the initial planning, and just looking forward to your support on that. And then finally, 371.26 is about the cauldron, the Olympic cauldron. I think you're familiar with the Olympic cauldron over at Georgia State University. The funding that is in there for $833,000 represents 1/3 of the funding of the cost to move the Olympic cauldron into Centennial Olympic Park. We do have a site location spotted in Centennial Olympic Park, right by the visitor center. We've been in conversation with Georgia State University. Also, Mr. Payne had approached us about this project and asked us if we'd be interested in being the caretaker for this if we relocated. So we're working through those details, but the $833,000 is 1/3 of the cost. The private sector will help with the other 2/3 of the cost.
I want to let the committee know that Mr. Payne is helping raise some of the money, right? Correct?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
So there is going to be some private investment in this, and it needs to be moved. It's time.
Yeah. We look forward to continuing to work with Georgia State and all the stakeholders to move that into Centennial Olympic Park, and appreciate your support on that. Those are our three capital project and bond requests. There is one other request I want to draw your attention to that the House made a change on, and that is the House change at 137.1. It's for $7 million, and really that's funding that will help related to public safety and infrastructure for future host events, like you mentioned, Senator. And so that is funding that was put in by the House. We're supportive and working with the LOC, which is the Atlanta Sports Council, the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau, the World Congress Center, and Mercedes-Benz Stadium for that funding to host the Super Bowl in the future, and the men's Final Four, as you noted. We got both of those back last year. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or if I missed anything, my colleagues will pick me up here.
Any questions? Senator, Number four. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. On your last note, you were talking about one-time funding or funding to, I guess, expand public safety presence for special events. Can you talk about just if the state's making those investments, or y'all are having to make those investments, even, the private sector having to step up? What's kind of going on right now with public safety in downtown? I know I get a lot of calls from many of the general managers that run, basically a lot of the prominent hotels in downtown. I know over the holidays, just to get the police to show up, they were basically saying that, there was maybe a stabbing or shooting just to get, Atlanta police to show up. Can you talk about what's going on? Because I know it's a continuous concern, and it seems like nothing's changing. And, my phone gets lit up every other week by my friends that are in downtown, and even some of my friends that work downtown about those concerns. And I know I've expressed them a little bit, offline with Georgia State. I went to school at Georgia State. I think their campus is fairly safe, but there's a bigger conversation that needs to happen if we're going to keep doing these bigger events and tell people they're safe. All it takes is, as you know, one time for something to happen, and then, we have a bigger problem on our hands. So if the state's going to put money into this, I just want to understand kind of what is the local share and what are the locals doing to do their part, because businesses and everybody's paying crazy taxes. So what are they doing with it?
Absolutely.
Not to put you on the spot, but
Yeah, a few things to unpack there. So I'll start and make sure I'm answering your questions, and if not, we'll pause and check in on it. So, as you know, we have our own public safety department for the World Congress Center, and so we take great pride in taking care of our campus state-certified police officers that we take care of every day. In addition to that, we work closely with the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau and the City of Atlanta to deploy officers during events up and down the corridors from Peachtree Street down through our campus into our facilities. You're right on target. Obviously, public safety is always going to be a concern and a perception sometimes of being safe or not being safe, and so we're always leaning into that. These funds represent, we have Atlanta bid events that come. Next year will be FIFA, and it requires more amplification on public safety for these worldwide type of events. And so this funding helps support those major events, but we have major events all the time. We're going to have cheerleaders here this weekend. We have cheer sport this weekend, takes up every inch of the World Congress Center, 70,000 people, and we're going to have fun, but we also want to make sure everybody's safe as they circulate through downtown. And so we work closely with the city of Atlanta and definitely have contacts at Zone 5 to work downtown Atlanta to make sure that we are on target, taking care of our customers. And so if anything pops up, then obviously we have conversations as we go with them, but we are tuned in to public safety from the World Congress Center's perspective and also the Bureau.
No, I appreciate it. I know you can't directly answer the questions, but, y'all do a fantastic job, but I do think at some point the city council in Atlanta needs to address what's going on. And I could even go further and talk about kind of what's going on in terms of what we've seen in the news over the last few weeks of, stabbings on MARTA bus routes and things like that, MARTA's been quiet about. So I think there's a bigger concern. But my concern, again, I'm hearing from business owners and hotel general managers is, when all these people come, and I don't feel safe now, when millions of people start showing up at the door, what's going to happen then? So hopefully there'll be a bigger conversation about what's going on with safety here in downtown Atlanta. Thank you. Y'all do a great job.
Thank you.
I do want to make one comment. Probably the safest place in America on Sunday was the Louisiana Superdome.
Yes.
You had so much protection there from a standpoint of the federal government, the Secret Service. I mean, it was unbelievable. So I would say this: when we have these big events, Mr. Chairman, I know that you have federal help too on the Super Bowls and the FIFA and probably the college championship. I don't
Absolutely.
know, but anyway, so. But I hear you on that. I think the other thing we have to talk about, and this is time for another discussion, but we got to get a fund to help you go after these events. In Texas, they have like $100 million fund where they go after Super Bowls and Final Fours and All-Star games, and we go to the private business community, and you can't keep going back to the well all the time. We got to have a little bit of money for the state to put in the game. That's one of the reasons I've been pushing casino gaming, because I think that'd be a nice way to fund some of that, but we'll get to that later. But we do need to have a fund to put these presentations together, because it's expensive to get these events.
They're very much so.
And but we want to help y'all. But anyway, thank you very much. Any other questions before?
I don't have any.
Okay, thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Appreciate
it. I'm good with all those items.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate your support.
All right, Commissioner Wilson, you're next. Come on up. Thank you for being here. How are you?
Good morning, Chairman. I'm good. How are you doing?
Thank you for that announcement up in my area in Roswell the other day. I saw
That was a
you.
great one.
Yeah.
That's a company that has a lot of potential to continue to grow, and in a field that we're really needed right now, which is defense aerospace.
Yeah.
But to have a headquarters project and manufacturing in Roswell, that's a pretty big opportunity.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all your work on that. I know the city council appreciates what you did, and they've got a lot going on up there. They're going to redevelop that Kimberly-Clark, 98 acres, and I'm trying to get them to go after some biotech business. I drove by that Boston Scientific. That building's
Isn't it great?
beautiful.
Yeah.
And I know you were very involved in that, so thank you for that.
No, thank you, Chairman.
All right.
We're selling product, and that's a great product. Roswell's a beautiful part of the country. Chairman, I don't have a lot to talk about today. We have 2 House adds to our budget, 2 changes that were done in the House. Everything else stayed the same. So I'm going to move through this unless anybody has any questions on the overall budget. In line 128.1, the House moved $250,000 from the Technical College System of Georgia to our department to cover funding for the Georgia Joint Defense Commission. So last year during session, the General Assembly, with the great work of Senator Kay Kirkpatrick, move the Georgia Joint Defense Commission from TCSG to the Department of Economic Development. This is just moving the funding along with it that went to that program. So obviously, we've got 9 bases in Georgia, huge economic impact. Originally, the Georgia Governor's Defense Initiative was with the department. This Georgia Joint Defense Commission was created under the Deal administration, and this kind of just moves things back together under one banner. So happy to have that move to the department. And then secondly, on line 135.2, under the Rural Development Division, the House took $379,092 for 2 vacant positions that we have under that program. There are 4 positions in the program. We had 2 retirements that happened in the middle of the beginning of the year, the division director and a second project manager position. And so those have not been filled, as we've been filling a deputy commissioner for global commerce position first, and then we'll move to fill those in the future. But this is just taking the difference in the vacant slots. So that's it. That's all we had added to the budget, and I'm, of course, happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Well, that was easy.
That's great.
Doing a good
Yeah.
job. Go get some more jobs for us.
I know. That's where I'm headed.
Well, thank you,
Y'all, thank you for
Commissioner.
your
You're doing a
support.
great job, and we appreciate all you do.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. All right, next, we're going to go to the Savannah Convention Center, and if you could come on up. Okay. How are you? Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, thank you for welcoming us here. Thank you very much.
Can you put that mic up a little closer to you, please? Thank you. And
How's that? Is that better?
yeah, it's better.
Very good. All right. I think we have a presentation. My name is Calvin Moore.
All right.
I'm a senior vice president with the Georgia World Congress Center Authority, and I'm also the general manager for the Savannah Convention Center. The relationship there, obviously, is the Savannah Convention Center contracts with the Georgia World Congress Center Authority to manage the
So
operation.
you're living in Savannah?
I'm living in Savannah.
Good.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And aren't y'all getting ready to do a ribbon cutting?
Yes, we are.
Good.
I'm normally more tech savvy than this, but this isn't working. All right, here we go. Okay. And I'm going to talk about that, so thank you for queuing that up. So the Savannah Convention Center, like most convention centers, not unlike the Georgia World Congress Center, we exist to drive economic impact, and we do so by hosting a wide variety of events, and we aim to be the best of what we do. There we go. So a little history on the Savannah Convention Center. And I'll preface this by saying we do not have an ask for a budget for this body this year. My report this morning is informational and to provide you guys with an update on what's going on down in Savannah. A bit of history on the Convention Center. Opened in 2000, initially as the Georgia International Trade and Convention Center. 2014, contracted with the Georgia World Congress Center Authority. In 2017, planning began for the expansion that we're opening in just a couple of days. In 2019, the local authority there was reconstituted as a state authority, the Savannah Georgia Convention Center Authority, and the name of the facility was formally changed to the Savannah Convention Center. In 2021, expansion groundbreaking took place, and in just 3 days, we're going to be opening the brand new expanded Savannah Convention Center. We're going to be welcoming 14,000 screaming young volleyball playing girls and their parents, and using the entire expanded convention center. So we're looking forward to that. A few specific items. The facility is state-owned. Just to clarify, it is on state property, and it is governed by a state authority. Okay. So how have we been doing down at the Convention Center? We just finished fiscal 24, and I believe you all have a copy of our annual report in front of you, so I'm not going to go through all of that, but a few of the highlights for you. We had 135 events that we hosted. We welcomed 198,000 attendees, generated over 254,000 room nights, supported 28,000 regional local hospitality jobs, and generated $220 million in economic impact for the state of Georgia. So it was a very, very good year for the Savannah Convention Center. Some of the events that we hosted, you may notice them up there. We are the annual home to many Georgia-based associations, Georgia Association of Water Professionals, National Beta, and several others. Many of those events you see there have been coming to the Convention Center since we opened back in 2000. So we're very proud of the activity that we've been able to host there. The main reason for my visit today is to thank the governor, thank the legislator, thank the Senate and House for your support on generating the expansion that we're about to open in a couple of days. The project, the Savannah Convention Center Expansion Project, a $276 million project. Again, thank you for your support on that. It doubles our size. It basically takes us from ranking by square footage from 175th in size to 75th in size. It expands our comp set. It allows us to punch up in weight class and compete with cities like Nashville and Tampa and Charlotte. It provides us the ability to host larger events and more simultaneous events. And ultimately what it does, it increases our capacity to drive more economic impact, which is our core mission. The project involved 30 Georgia-based companies, created 3,200 jobs. 500 of those jobs was direct in construction. How are we looking as far as bookings? A lot of numbers on that sheet there, but I'll draw you to the green circle. As of last week, we have over 100 events already booked to take place in the expansion space. What that means is, if it were for not the expansion of the Savannah Convention Center, we may not have been able to book any of those events. So we're already well ahead of the curve. Our partners down at Visit Savannah are doing a very good job of programming the facility, and we're well on our way to driving more economic impact for the state. So we're not here to make any asks, but Convention Center, not unlike the Georgia World Congress Center, does have capital needs. The Convention Center, the authority down in Savannah, is self-funded. It is self-funded through hotel motel tax through Chatham County and 5 local cities, the city of Savannah, Garden City, Thunderbolt, Port Wentworth, Tybee, Bloomingdale, and Pooler all contribute a portion of their lodging tax to contribute to the operations of the Convention Center. The Savannah, Georgia Convention Center Authority has not sought state funding for operations in its history, and we've been able to fund the vast majority of the capital needs over the life of the Convention Center, just under $27 million in capital investments. Although we're opening the expansion, we do have a side of the building that's 25 years old, right? So similar to some of the projects that you heard from Kevin about, we have aging infrastructure. One of the most critical that we're working on right now is to repair the Riverwalk, the bulkhead. Convention Center sits on an island, and maritime and the barges going by continues to wash away at the infrastructure of the island. We are in the beginning stages of a $10 million project to repair the bulkhead. Phase 1 of that is to do all the under earth infrastructure, to the dredging and pulling the bulkhead and tiebacks and so on. We received a $2.5 million contribution from the federal government to help us get that work started in Phase 1. Phase 2 will be to come above ground and do the beautification, the pavers, the landscaping, lights, and things of that nature. That will be important in that it will connect the entire campus and really just reinforce the infrastructure the Convention Center sits on. And the next 3 that you see there, aging infrastructure, escalators, chillers, air handlers, all 25 years old. All the components are past their life expectancy. And so we're going to be going down the path of enhancing and replacing some of those in the years to come. So you will see us in the future budget cycles coming seeking support to take care of some of those items. And with that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Oh, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
How many direct flights are into Savannah besides through, not just Atlanta, but do you have any direct flights to Nashville or to Charlotte or anywhere, or is it all connecting through Atlanta to get to Savannah?
I don't have the exact number. I think there are upwards of 30 or 35 direct flights, but I couldn't quote you what those were. I can get that and figure that out before we get that back to you.
And do you then target those areas to
Absolutely.
come to conventions there?
Yeah.
Because, that's easy. And when you don't have to change planes, it's easy to go after convention business.
Yeah.
Or-
And
And y'all got a great product down there with all the historic stuff down
Yeah.
there in Savannah, so.
it's a fantastic place. I've lived there for a year, moved from Chicago, and as I've told many of my friends, I enjoyed Chicago, but Savannah's warmer and the people are nicer. So it's the
Well,
best
good.
place to be.
Well, all right. Any other questions? Yes. Is that 4?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, y'all do an excellent job. Proof by you not asking for anything today. But I do think, y'all's future growth is important to the state. And so, the only comment I'm going to make is very similar to what I said about the city of Atlanta. The city of Savannah needs to step up their game, and I know the delegation down there is addressing, deal with it. It's highly political, but business owners I talk to, I know a lot of them that are in Savannah. I've had even my own company having offices in Savannah. It is a concern, and if we're going to long-term continue to see your success, Savannah needs to step up their game to make sure people feel safe when they visit and spend money. And even my friends and cousins who have moved to Savannah from Orlando and Puerto Rico, feel like they're going to be safe. I know they're moving. Some of them are moving, kind of downtown proper,
Yeah.
out to the suburbs.
That's right.
I think a lot of folks are, but I think that's it's still just a concern, and hopefully you get the support you need to be successful. You, the chamber, I know the other leaders that are really concerned about, economic dollars that are important to, what we do across the entire state. It's not just Chatham County and Savannah, but it has a trickle down effect or up effect to a lot of businesses across the state.
Very good.
So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you very much.
All right. Any other, Senator? What mic is that? 11?
Y'all do a great job.
Thank you.
The last time, I talked loud, thought I didn't need this. But the last time I was there with a group, we went to the Port Authority and they had so much backup, like 6 months worth almost. Did that adversely affect, products coming in or whatever you needed?
Yeah,
And is it finished?
Yeah, our business is not unlike any other business that was impacted by a lot of the shortages and so on. I think our team did a good job of planning ahead. We didn't see a lot of significant negative impact, but we're not unfazed like any other group, though.
That's good, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you
and
very much.
Good luck on your ribbon cutting.
Thank you.
All right, we got one final presentation from Senator Hunter Hill. Senator, if you'd come on up.
Oh, wow.
We miss you in the Senate,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
but you're doing a great job.
Have a Rules Committee meeting up here. It's been a while, but it's great to see all of y'all, and thanks for your obvious continued great work. I'm here with the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, and I know all of y'all know what we do, but we implement some federal programs on the energy side, but primarily we are an infrastructure bank for the state of Georgia to invest in water and sewer infrastructure and solid waste around the state. And over the last 5 years, we've done $1.9 billion in loans, and a lot of that increase in demand is due to, some of it's anecdotal, but just my data that I'm looking at is the ARPA money had a big impact to, even though that was grant money and the local communities were not going to have to pay it back, a lot of them dusted off old plans and decided to make an investment and start to get going on infrastructure investment. And even though 100% of those funds couldn't be, they didn't use 100% grant funds, but since they were ready to go, they then came to us for loan money. And so we've really said yes to a lot of loans. We try to say yes to every community that comes and asks. We work hard to underwrite them to make sure that they can pay the money back. We work with them also to educate them on the rates that they should be charging to customers in the event they need to raise those rates to afford the investment. So we have a great partnership with communities all over the state, and we couldn't do it without the capitalization from the state and the federal government. The governor's proposal, and then you get all this momentum that we've had with economic development, and businesses can't come in and develop, and residents can't live obviously without clean water, so investments have to be made. We made the incredible investment in Bryan County, but that was for groundwater, and for that community, that 4 or 5 county region to continue to be sustainable, we needed to come up with a plan to pull surface water in there, because groundwater will eventually get tapped, and it will hurt farmers, and it will have a downward pressure on the ability for that community to continue to grow. So the permit allowed for us to use groundwater for 25 years, but the proactive nature of our governor and our legislature says, well, let's not wait till it gets dire. Let's go ahead and make the investment now. And so that's the proposal that's in front of you, is to go ahead and make the investment now while the state is financially healthy. And so there is a $501,700,000 request to move that region from groundwater to surface water. It's a mix of state investment and direct investment and loans. And we thought that was important as we were crafting the solution that's being proposed to you, that it wouldn't entirely be state funding, that there would also be a local share, and that local share comes in the form of a loan. And so we will be working with Effingham, Bryan, and Savannah on the details of how that financially comes together, and really we already have. Key points on that $501,700,000. Number one, Effingham County will have a total investment of $319 million for new intake, water treatment plant, and water transmission lines. Savannah will have $146 million for intake improvements, expansion of existing water treatment plant, and then Bryan County will get $36.7 million for transmission lines. Sometimes it helps to see a picture, so the next slide will kind of show you how that project is broken down. Oh, well, this is a slide to really hammer home the amount of demand that we have across the state. The green is the funding limits. We have to set limits on how much we can say yes to based on how much capital we have. So if y'all approve to give us more money, the green line will go up. We will be able to say yes to a larger number of loans and more per project to communities. The blue line is the demand. This is when we ask for communities to say, what do you need invested in your community? They give us projects with costs, and this is the amount of projects across the state. So we're not going to be able to continue to say yes without this additional funding, and so that's why it's important. And this is really for the $250 million that we're asking, because the $250 million that's separate on the request is for the rest of the state. The $501,700,000 is just for the Savannah community, Savannah area. Next slide, please. This is a picture of that project that the $501,700,000 is funding. It's kind of hard to see all that's going on, but bottom line is we have to stick a straw in the Savannah River, bring raw water into the middle of Effingham, treat that water, and then move that water out to Bryan County. And that's a lot of pipe. That's a lot of investment there. But it will position this community for continued growth over the next 25 to 50 years. So I'll pause there and just see if there's any questions.
Any questions? Yes.
Just a couple, I guess. Great to have you here today.
Chuck?
So this program, I mean, some of this stuff is no interest loans, and some of it is, I guess, grants. Is that how it is?
Yes.
So
Let me.
what kind of, I mean, I know we keep putting money into it, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, but we need to, when do we start getting money to the positive or something? I guess we never will, but explain that.
Well, I will. some of the reason for the need for the state direct investment is because these communities, they're benefiting greatly from Hyundai being there, for example, but they didn't choose to have such a thirsty client there, I guess, and so we put in the groundwater, and it's not sustainable for the long term. And we knew all that. It was just a function of when. And so we believe that it's important, because Hyundai doesn't just benefit that local region, it benefits the whole state, that there should be some state investment to prepare the region to continue to have Hyundai, but also to position it for continued growth. So there's a state direct investment for the environmental impact, and then the benefit of doing the loan program. I mean, I think Washington ought to learn from us in that regard. Is y'all put a single tranche in, we make an investment in the community. When they pay it back, we're able to then take that money and reinvest it into other communities. And so we don't come here every year asking for money, and it is so this $250 million and the $501 million. Half of the $501,700,000 will be given back to us in the form of repayments. So half of it's state direct investment, half will be paid back. We don't typically say yes to 0%, Senator. We usually put interest on it. But for these big economic development projects, we do go with 0% interest loans.
I have a question.
Yes.
When's the last time we've built a reservoir in the state of Georgia?
We've said we've been working on saying yes to these in the past, and it takes sometimes 20 years to get done. We're working with one out in Carroll County, and there's a couple along the 316 corridor as well. So some of them are in development still, but we haven't said yes to a new one in quite a while.
I believe it's been 45 years since we've built a reservoir, and we get plenty of rain. We get more rain than Seattle, and we're not capturing it. And I think we need to look at capturing the rainwater we have, and we wouldn't have some of these problems, in my opinion. I'm not being negative or anything. I fully support this infrastructure investment because I believe you got to invest in infrastructure, but I also believe because of the permitting process, nobody wants to permit a reservoir, I guess, and just like a landfill. One day we're gonna wake up and we're gonna have a problem where we're gonna put our trash if we don't start thinking about landfills. And nobody wants them in their backyard, I get that, but it's an issue, just like reservoirs. And the thing about the reservoirs, we do get plenty of rain. We're just letting it go down to Florida.
Mr. Chairman, I agree, and I think we've benefited from above average annual rainfall over the last couple of years, and I hope we're ready when that shifts to the negative.
Okay. All right. You got a comment, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with everything Chairman Beach said. One thing I will fact check is I know we just opened in the last decade a reservoir in Paulding County. It did take 30 years to build, but I know we did open one, and y'all were very instrumental in seeing that happen. But I think to the chairman's point, what I'm looking at the dollars on this, and I know there's a big customer down in southeast Georgia. I know we're not looking at all the potential projects that may exist in North Georgia, other places, or in West Georgia. But I know just the business demand of what we're seeing coming into the state, even I'm seeing even in my own district, the concerns of having water capacity, access to water, even with that new reservoir in Paulding County, I would make the argument that reservoir is already obsolete based on population growth and everything else. And I know there's challenges, working with Commissioner Wilson's team, that when projects come, one of the things that's usually, last we're trying to negotiate, or, some cities are feeling the pressures of having to maybe even force extra bonds or extra debt to basically, come up with infrastructure to, bring 2,000 jobs to a community like I know we experienced in one community where I represent. So when I see this where, $500 million is going one place and 250 is basically everybody else, it just kind of raises my eye a little bit. I get kind of what's going on down there, and I know it's been debated even in this room and other committee meetings. But I think to Chairman Beach and Chairman Huffstetler's or Senator Huffstetler's comments, I think there is a concern, and water is going to really, water security are two topics that are really going to determine how economically we're going to succeed as a state and make sure we continue in this pole position. So, we appreciate your leadership, and I know you're not the one that sometimes having to make the final decision on a lot of things. But I will say, just on behalf of this body, that if there are going to be significant investments into water, that places like that has not seen the growth where the growth is coming, like West Georgia, and I could debate the Carroll County Reservoir. I used to represent Haralson County. I think they're getting the raw end of that deal, but we'll talk about that later. But I think that there's a bigger conversation to the chairman's point about the water necessity and things that we're seeing throughout North Georgia. But Hunter, you're awesome. Thanks for your leadership, dude. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Hunter.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments? Any other questions or comments? Okay, I want to thank Caroline and Austin and Sydney. Thank you for all. She's done a great job, and I want to publicly thank her. I want to thank Megan and Ella, my team. They've done a great job putting all this together. So thank you all very much. This is not really a public comment meeting, but I would open it up. Does anybody in the audience want to say anything about anything we've heard? I will open it to the public as chair. Any comments? We don't have a sign-up sheet, but if anybody wants to comment on anything you've heard today, I'll leave it open. I guess not. Okay. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you all very much.